Well, welcome. You are watching and listening to The Human Resource. My name is Pandy, and I have an old personality coming back, a veteran personality for the show.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Is that right?
I did say old, didn't I? I think I'm older than you, actually. Walt Tracy with At Work Personnel here in Cincinnati is here, and we're going to try a new topic. You know, if you watch the show, you know I don't spend a lot of time on talent management. I don't focus on what's going on from a recruiting perspective and staffing. And Walt's my resident expert in this. And we got to talking the other day and came up with a couple scenarios that we looked at each other and said, "Oh, no, this is a good podcast." So
Yep.
Walt has joined me today.
Yep. Great to be with you, Pandy.
Thank you. But we're going to talk about the candidate experience because, quite frankly, Walt and I are hearing that some of you are just lousy in this candidate experience. And that's, I can't even figure it out. I mean, how did we get to this point when everybody's complaining that they can't find candidates? Candidates aren't showing up. They can't find the candidates they're looking for. And yet they're dropping the ball as much as anybody. Yeah,
I think you're right, and it's probably exactly the world has changed, right, in terms of the dynamic of it leans toward the employee now, right? Given what all we've seen about demographics and shortages and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think the question is, have companies changed to respond to that? Sometimes what I will see is, why isn't what was working, 10 years ago still working? Well, the marketplace has changed and not everyone has adapted to that necessarily.
Well, and I think you and I have even talked, change is the only constant in the universe.
Yeah.
This is what I just don't quite seem to understand. But the behaviors that you and I are becoming more aware of in the candidate process, the recruiting process, some of this is totally inexcusable. So I want to go back over and have you walk through our viewers and listeners on the finer details that make such a big difference.
Yeah. Well, and I think I'll start with, what's important to candidates right now. So there's a few things maybe we'll walk through. But one is if they're looking and if they're available, it needs to move quickly, right? Things with what's going on with technology and all of that means that they expect things to happen quickly. And so speed are really important. Communication is really important. And those are probably two of the biggest gaps that we see. I guess I'll throw in a few other things that even get into kind of setting the ground for even going into recruiting and everything that make a huge difference these days. So you can expect when a candidate is working with you, they're checking you out. They're on your website. They are looking at your reviews. So there's even, to me, some groundwork you've got to lay, before you actually get into the recruiting process around what's your employer branding. How consistent is that? We continue to hear a lot of interest on the part of candidates about, kind of even missionally, being very clear at your organization about, what your mission and purpose is, because they're going to want to know if that's something that they align with, and then kind of greens fees around making sure, right, your pay, your compensation, your policies from a flexibility standpoint. So there's all those kinds of kind of groundwork that needs to be in place, because those are all things candidates are going to touch on as they go through the process with you.
Well, and what amazes me is and again, the stories that you and I are hearing is just kind of like the refinement. That's all the meat of the process. But maybe even companies should start thinking about who's actually participating in this hiring process. And I'll give you a good scenario. I got a phone call from a client the other day, and she said, "You met with this individual and talked to them before they went into the interviewing process. What did you tell them? Because we just got a call from the recruiter, and the recruiter said that it was one of the worst experiences the candidate has ever had. And I said, okay, start there, break it down. And it turns out that the person that was interviewing it, the employer representative, actually pulled out her cell phone, lost eye contact because she was sitting there texting on her phone, Walt.
Yeah.
And the candidate was trying to talk, but stopped talking because it was obvious that the person who was interviewing didn't really have an interest in what the individual was saying. And then prior to that, when they brought the individual in, they didn't even turn the light on in the little conference room. They sat the candidate in the room in the dark, didn't offer her water, didn't offer her any information, brochures, or anything about the company. Literally just sat there and let her sit there in the dark until the interviewer came in, and she came in with her cell phone. I mean, that's common sense stuff, isn't it?
Well, it should be, but I think you're right. I mean, things you would take as kind of a common courtesy, right?
Courtesy, I like that word.
Even did you respond, right? We run into issues of, where we even just someone turning in an application, they still expect, a response back, even if we don't want to move forward with you or something like that.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up.
Or again, as you walk through the whole process with the candidate, how many interviews are you going to do, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Are you keeping in touch with them? Are you providing feedback to them? So all of those, I kind of put in that same kind of common courtesy. Are you communicating with them, letting them know what's going on, confirming the time of the interview, confirming what the next step is, right? All of those that, again, we would say is just common courtesy. More so now, and again, an employee-driven market, you've got to be on your toes on all of those things.
Well, and it's not difficult because that can be a template. You don't have to personalize a rejection.
Yep.
You can just simply say, thank you so much. We're thrilled that you thought of us, but we've chosen to go a different direction. And there are a lot of recommendations on the internet, or there are suggestions that you can pull, or you can, viewers, you can contact Walt. He'll give you all sorts of templates on that kind of stuff.
And automation can help with that. If you have, if you're using your ATS effectively,
That's
right, there are some of those things that can do auto responses and or reminders to you. Hey, you just had an interview. Make sure you send a follow-up out, or those, and you can automate a lot of those things as well. So,
and when we talk about cost, just going through the whole recruiting process is expensive. The time, the energy, blocking off the work that you're not able to do because you're doing these interviews. Why would a company not want to spend that time and money wisely?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I was actually just at a conference today where we were talking about cost of turnover that gets into all of that, time and cost, screening, all of those kinds of things, and again, your goal at the end of it, right, is to try and recruit or certainly vet and recruit somebody, and so even the prep time to make sure you're asking the right questions, that you're and spending that time engaged with them. I mean, again, if the whole goal, out of this is that you're building your team, wouldn't you want to, put the right. First of all, represent your company well, right? Getting back to that employee, so employee branding. I started, way back with what, but it's also the person sitting in the room conducting the interview, right? To the example you gave, you're the employee brand, or you're the employer brand at that point. And so you also, so they're checking all of that out as part of the broader employer brand picture.
I wonder sometimes if employers have gotten just kind of numb and feel like they have to lower themselves to the same level of the employee because they're looking at the candidate and saying, well, even if I hire you, you're going to show up. Even if I hire you, are you who you say you are?
Yeah. Well, and some of that, I think our approach is always is assume the best, right?
Yes.
That, I mean, by the time they're coming in and I'm having an interview with them, I want to assume this thing can work out, right? And so maybe that would I don't know, reflect that, do some better screening so that the people who are coming in are ones who, you'd be interested and invested in moving forward for.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think more than anything, you and I need to really put a lot of emphasis, and viewers, please understand this isn't to overly criticize you, but it's to help you understand the cost of not doing this correctly. And Walt just mentioned, if you don't get the candidate because the candidate doesn't want you, that's one cost. But how do you recover from the cost of all the bad things that individual is now going to say about that potential client or that potential employer?
yeah.
Because she went right back to the recruiter and said, "Don't put me back there."
Yeah, exactly. Well, and
what kind of company is this?
Right. That's so. Again, going back to even as early as the application process, they're forming an opinion about you throughout the process, right? And anything you're doing that points that in a negative direction, what's the old thing? People share bad news with 20 other people,
gosh.
right?
Yes, yes. And with social media now,
right.
we have no idea who she decided to go back and go, oh, yeah.
Or stuck a review on you.
Well, oh, gosh. And I've heard some bad Glassdoor reviews that never go away.
Yep.
Never go away. And that costs you money because you're right. Candidates will go and look at those reviews and say, oh, I'm not going to waste my time.
They are. So I heard a staggering statistic that over 90%, certainly of millennial and younger candidates, evaluate reviews as part of their decision.
They do.
Yeah.
Now, when I interview, I will ask them, have you gone to the website? Do you tell me what you know of this company? But I never thought to ask them, so did you check out our reviews?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, yeah, they're doing it. Yeah. And make a decision. That not only are they checking it, that's factoring into their decision anyway.
Fact.
Yeah.
All right, so give us the top 5 things that these employers need to be aware to make sure that the candidate experience is stellar.
Yeah. Well, I think for one thing, it starts with the job ad. So what are you posting? And I think we've kind of talked about this before is, are you posting the job description or something to them that's compelling and winning and that kind of thing? So kind of, so you get a little bit of the, what's in it for me, for the candidate in there, as opposed to kind of the traditional dry description and everything. So first of all, because that begins to give the candidate an insight into the company. Again, we'll keep kind of circling back to this employer branding idea. That's, again, how you're positioning yourself in the job ad is part of your employer branding. And again, part of that processing, especially again, as these candidates are steering more and more toward, is this a company I want to work for? Yeah. Does it align with my goals and those kinds of things? So even how you position the job description is really important. We talked about communication responsiveness. To me, that really is number one. Just responding. Again, if they're looking to move quickly, and so. Kind of in line with that, I've suggested to a number of our clients just to even review their process. How many people are you having them speak to?
Good point.
Does that elongate the process? How many of those actually factor into the decision making, or is this something we've been doing for 10 years and that's just how we do it? Yeah. So really being careful about, what is that interview sequence? Who all do they need to talk to? And have I already talked with that hiring team to actually kind of line up some capacity to say we're going to be having some people coming in over the next few weeks as we've got candidates for these? Is that capacity there? I'm amazed how often I hear, maybe I had my initial screen, but it's going to be 2 weeks before we can get you in because, Joe, our ops manager over here, isn't available until then, right?
And decisions, if they do that in the final decision where they've already gone, I've heard this, where candidates will go through 3 or 4 actual interviews, and then they don't hear anything for 2 or 3 weeks. That's insane. Why would why would anybody want to work for somebody like that?
Again, employee. So how have you represented yourself to that candidate, right? So you look disorganized, indecisive, right? Think about again what the candidate's takeaway is, or at least be talking during that time, right? Again, that's where the communication piece is.
Yes.
If there's something going on, at least communicate that to the candidate.
Yeah. Again, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Again, viewers, don't hesitate. Walt's a resource. When I have questions or I have concerns, I run to him. He's here for all of us. So think about what your process is. When was the last time you reviewed it? When was the last time you actually thought about, hey, maybe there's something we should be doing differently? And At Work Personnel, award-winning organization here in Cincinnati.
Best of staffing.
That's the. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Walt's one of those guys that we don't script anything. We really don't practice. We just say, hey, here's a topic. And you are so good at it.
Well, and it's always a great conversation with you. So.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I hope each of you got something out of this, because that's what we're all about here at the Human Resource. Take care.